What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, undefeated, unified 3-belt WBC, WBA, IBF, welterweight world champion, superstar boxer who's widely considered to be top 2, if not number 1, definitely top 5 best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. And ERROL the True Spence Jr., 28 wins, no loss, no draw, 22 big wins by way of knockout, 32 years of age, 5'9.5" with a 72-inch arm reach. He absolutely goes in on former multi-division world champion, retired superstar, possible future Hall of Famer, and Antonio the Magic Man Tarver. Antonio Tarver finished his career 31 wins, 6 losses, 1 draw, 22 wins by way of knockout. He's now 53 years of age, 6'2" with a 75-inch arm reach, okay? Antonio Tarver, he campaigned at 175, 168, and he even campaigned at I believe cruiserweight and light heavyweight, right? But ERROL Spence is obviously in the conversation with the biggest fight in boxing currently as it stands between himself and his biggest rival, in undefeated 3-division world champion, former junior welterweight undisputed world champion, currently the reigning WBO World Boxing Organization welterweight world champion, who is widely considered by many to be the #1 best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, in Terrence Bud Crawford. Terrence Crawford is 38 wins, no loss and no draw, 29 big wins by way of knockout, 35 years of age, 5'8" with a 74-inch arm reach. That's the biggest fight in the sport of boxing. So we know legends such as retired Hall of Fame iconic superstar boxer in Roy Jones Jr., okay, who has a show. He does a podcast with Antonio Tarver, okay? So Roy Jones Jr., he has some very, very interesting things to say and interesting takes when it comes to ERROL Spence Jr. Roy Jones finished his career 66 wins, 9 losses, no draws, 47 wins by way of knockout. 5 times he was knocked out. He's 53 years of age, 5'11" with a 74-inch arm reach, okay? So they do a podcast, Antonio Tarver, Roy Jones, and obviously they talk about the sport of boxing, the state of the sport of boxing, upcoming fights, past fights, so on and so forth, right? And it's abundantly clear they hadn't really done their homework regarding ERROL Spence, okay? And ERROL Spence feels like, you know, they're one-sided when it comes to the Terrence Crawford fight. But not just that, you know, he feels like they have a bone to pick with him, right? And so ERROL Spence was tagged in a post by Antonio Tarver. And Antonio Tarver was talking about a fight between ERROL Spence and Terrence Crawford, and he talked about it was a highlight clip that Antonio Tarver put up on his social media, and he asked the question, you know, when ERROL Spence in his last fight, April 16th, Arlington, Texas, AT&T Dallas Cowboys Stadium, when ERROL Spence had a unification bout against former WBA welterweight world champion, Cuban star boxer Yordenis Ugas. There was a moment where ERROL Spence had a lapse in the fight. Yordenis Ugas, he clipped ERROL Spence, and ERROL Spence's mouthpiece came out. And ERROL Spence completely had a lapse, right? A letdown, you know, completely disregarded everything was going on and just went to pick up his mouthpiece. Now, ERROL Spence, he stated that the referee said, called a halt to the fight. The referee said, stop. And he went to pick up his mouthpiece. But obviously, we can't hear that on TV. You can't hear it in the arena. Only ERROL Spence, Yordenis Ugas, and the referee possibly can hear, and possibly the judges, people sitting ringside. But ERROL Spence, he stated that the referee said stop. But then afterwards, you know, we heard the audio of the referee actually saying stop. But Ugas clipped him again, right? And drilled him into the ropes. And ERROL Spence stumbled back and fell into the ropes. And but obviously he didn't fall, he didn't get knocked out, you know, he weathered the storm, and he even, you know, smiled about it, right? And so Tarver, he stated, if this is Terrence Crawford in this moment, does ERROL Spence survive the moment? Which is a legit question, right? Because ERROL Spence did that twice now, since he suffered that horrific car accident October of 2019 after unifying the belts against retired two-time welterweight world champion superstar boxer Showtime Sean Porter. Errol Spence did that against Danny Swift Garcia, two-division world champion Puerto Rican superstar boxer, December 5th of 2020, when he ended his 14-month layoff, right? And got back in the ring. And he did the same thing with Danny Garcia. Now, it wasn't as blatant as this one was, right? But it was, it wasn't as blatant and clear. But he did have that lapse, right? And people are questioning and saying, is Errol Spence, something wrong with his mouthpieces? They're questioning, because he had to have dental work, oral work after the car accident. So people started to question, is that going to be an issue, right? Is it not fitting, his mouthpiece not fitting, so on and so forth. And but this time it was blatantly obvious. So it's a lapse that Errol Spence is having, okay, in these fights, point blank and period. It's just clearly a lapse, right? And so with that said, people are questioning, right, if this is Terrence Crawford in that position. Terrence Crawford has knocked out or stopped 10 of his last 11 opponents, okay? Terrence Crawford is able to use his left and his right hand, extremely long arms, power in both hands. So Terrence Crawford is a different type of animal when it comes to being in the ring. He got power, he's a dog, and he has a finisher's mentality. More importantly, his mentality is to close the show. So people are questioning and wondering, if that was Terrence Crawford in that situation, what would be the outcome? Now, I personally think if that was Terrence Crawford in that situation, he might, at the very least, I think he's going to drop Errol Spence. If that was Terrence, if you remove, your Dana Sugas is not the biggest puncher, okay, clearly, okay, but if you remove Terrence Crawford and you insert your Dana Sugas in that situation, it's a different type of animal, right? So I do think that, obviously, your Dana Sugas is not the puncher Terrence Crawford is. Your Dana Sugas has, in 31 fights, he has 12 knockouts. So he's clearly not the big puncher that Terrence Crawford is. Terrence Crawford has as many knockouts as Ugas, nearly as many knockouts as Ugas has fights. He has 29 knockouts in his career, and your Dana Sugas has 31 fights. So he's only 2 fights removed from having just as many knockouts as Ugas has fights. And they're the same age, right? So, and they fought in the amateurs, so they have history themselves. So with that said, Terrence Crawford, power, in that position, in that situation, I think he may drop Errol Spence. Or he's definitely going to badly wobble Errol Spence, right? And it's possible he could even knock him out in that position. Now, Errol Spence, there's no proof of that because Errol Spence is very durable, right? We see Errol Spence take big hits and get hit and hurt, cleanly, weather the storm, and get back on the horse and, close the show. Clearly, he's undefeated, okay? You look at Emmanuel Latte when he hurt Errol Spence, he badly hurt Errol Spence with a big punch, okay? And, everybody points to that fight as the fight that was back in, October 2013, but Emmanuel Latte, he caught Errol Spence clean and hurt Errol Spence badly, wobble Errol Spence, so on and so forth. And so it's a legit question, in my opinion, with Antonio Tarver raised, if Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, you reverse the roles. So Errol Spence, he pointed to Terrence Crawford fight with another Olympic gold medalist, Cuban superstar, 3-division world champion, in Yuriorkis Gamboa, okay? So Yuriorkis Gamboa and Terrence Crawford fought. Yuriorkis Gamboa came up in weight. He faced off against Terrence Crawford. They both was undefeated. And Yuriorkis Gamboa, this was back in June of 2014. So Yuriorkis Gamboa, he rocked Terrence Crawford about 2 to 3 times in that fight. And he was coming up in weight. So Errol Spence is saying, Yuriorkis Gamboa is a smaller guy. So he responded to Antonio Tarver. And he went in on Tarver and he said, What about Gamboa hurting him, so on and so forth, right? And, you know, Tarver was saying, well, Yuriorkis Gamboa was a superstar. He was pound for pound top 5 best fighters in the world at the time. I don't know if he was top 5 best fighters in the world, but he was definitely top 10 best pound for pound fighters in the world. Yuriorkis Gamboa was. Not too many people remember that. He was perceived a bigger superstar at the time than Terrence Crawford, for sure. You know, and Yuriorkis Gamboa is a tornado. You know, fast hands, power. You know, and he's always up against, you know, at a size disadvantage, so that's nothing new, right? But he did buzz Terrence Crawford, and Terrence Crawford to this day always says that that's the toughest fight of his career was the Yuriorkis Gamboa fight. So Errol Spence, he goes in on Antonio Tarver, and then he lets the world know that if you're Antonio Tarver and you tested positive for banned substance and performance enhancers, don't mention my name, not respectfully. He meaning disrespectfully, right? So he's saying not respectfully. I'm not being respectful, right? And we know that Roy Jones tested positive for a banned substance. Antonio Tarver tested positive for a banned substance. And that's a terrible thing within the sport of boxing. I think it needs to be done away with. I just think that it's just, you know, the sport of boxing is way too dangerous on its own. You understand what I'm saying? But to add unfair advantage or to give a human some quote unquote superpowers, right? You know, you get tired, you fade, the power goes down. But imagine being able to sustain that power throughout 12 rounds. The durability, and it gives you the energy, or it just increases your punching power. We just see this recently with Conor Benn of the UK, welterweight title contender, British superstar boxer, son of the legend Nigel Benn. I think Conor Benn should be banned for at least 3 years, at the very least, right? Because fighters actually, you risk it all. You never know on an even playing field, just naturally, right? You never know when a fighter steps through those ropes, is he going to step out the same way he steps in, okay? And, you know, then to add a boost to another human, you're not hitting baseballs, you're hitting a human. And so it's absolutely terrible. And I think there's no place for it. I think you should be suspended. So Antonio Tarver, he was suspended. Antonio Tarver was punished, right? And he was, you know, outed for testing positive, and so was Roy Jones. And ironically, so was James Toney, right? And a lot of fighters in the past. And I just think there's absolutely no place for that in the sport of boxing. And so Errol Spence, he says, mic drop and says that, you know, if you tested positive for a banned substance, don't mention my name anymore. So he rips into Antonio Tarver. Antonio Tarver, he once stated that Terrence Crawford reminded him of himself. I don't see that at all. If anything, I think that Errol Spence is more resemblance of Antonio Tarver's style than Terrence Crawford. Let me get 2 caramel frappuccinos. Tall. Tall.
2 tall caramel fraps?
Yep. Let me get a pumpkin spice latte hot. Venti size.
Latte hot?
Yeah, venti with coconut milk.
With coconut milk, and did you still want the whipped cream?
Yep. Everything on it.
No problem, Eagle.
Yeah, let me get also let me get a pumpkin spice frap with oat milk, no whipped cream, venti.
A grande pumpkin spice frap with oat milk and
venti.
no whipped cream?
Venti.
A venti, Eagle.
With oat milk, no whipped cream.
Oat milk and no whipped cream, Eagle.
That's it.
$25.85.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Pardon me, my peoples. Happy wife, happy life. You understand what I'm saying? So, with that said, you know, in resemblance, like Antonio Tarver said that he feel like Terrence Crawford reminds him of himself. No, I don't see that. Terrence Crawford is way more versatile, way more fluid, lighter, much lighter on his feet. You know, Terrence Crawford, you know, is just a more versatile fighter than Antonio Tarver, in my opinion, ever was. This is no slight to Antonio Tarver, but I just simply don't see the resemblance between Antonio Tarver and Terrence Crawford at all. If there's any resemblance, I would say being a southpaw, being more flat-footed and aggressive, I think that ERROL Spence would resemble him more than Terrence Crawford. But obviously there's some history there. So, and it is, now obviously everybody deserves, in my opinion, second chances. Antonio Tarver served his, suspension and faced his punishment, did what he had to do. But I think more fighters need to, my point wanting to talk about this was, I think more fighters need to bring this awareness up, because it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. There's so many reports and rumors that people are testing positive for banned substance, in the sport, and they're just not getting caught, right? And you're risking your life. You understand what I'm saying? These fighters are risking their life every time they step through those ropes, for our entertainment.
Sorry.
So I think that, there needs to be more awareness brought to this. And there's really no response that Antonio Tarver could say coming back, period. But let's see how everything unfolds. We know ERROL Spence, Terrence Crawford fight not coming to fruition next. We know ERROL Spence is frustrated. There's a lot frustration plays a part. So let's see how this unfolds and plays out. There's rumors and reports that ERROL Spence could face off against Keith Thurman next. ERROL Spence could face off against Amanda Stanionis or even Jerron Boots Ennis. So let's see how this all unfolds and plays out. But that's all I got for y'all. Make sure you hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. You already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like and share these videos. That's all I got for y'all. Peace.